Imagine it's midday, the sun is fierce, and I'm tending to my tomatoes when suddenly, a loud crash resonates from my fence, followed by a yelp. Deborah, the self-appointed ruler of our homeowners association, clad in her garish floral attire, has tumbled off a ladder while attempting to spy on my garden. Welcome to the saga of Willow Creek. She believes she can dictate every detail of my lawn, but she's in for a surprise if she thinks I'm a typical neighbor. Prepare for a tale that will have you in stitches. Join the conversation by sharing where you're reading from. It was a routine Tuesday afternoon towards the end of May when everything shifted in our tranquil Willow Creek neighborhood. As the sun bore down, I was engrossed in my vegetable patch, a green haven I'd lovingly nurtured over the past 3 years. Just as I began watering my heirloom tomatoes, an enormous crash pierced the air, followed by a high-pitched cry from behind my privacy fence. With a resigned sigh, I abandoned my watering can and went to investigate, already suspecting who was involved. Sure enough, there lay Deborah Walsh, our imperious HOA president, inelegantly sprawled on the ground beside an overturned ladder, her floral dress revealing grazed knees. "Lucas Bennett," she screeched upon sighting me, trying to lift herself with one hand while accusingly pointing the other. "You're concealing something illicit in that garden of yours? Why else is that fence so high? It's against HOA rules." Her voice penetrated the afternoon silence like a siren, drawing the attention of any neighbor within earshot. I maintained my calm exterior, though beneath the surface I was simmering. "Deborah, you're trespassing. I'm not hiding anything illegal. It's just a vegetable garden. The fence complies with the HOA regulations, which I've thoroughly reviewed. Do you need medical help or can you manage?" My tone remained steady as I watched her dust herself off. I overheard her mutter, "Mum was right, a lack of control leads to disaster," an odd remark that stuck with me. But before I could mull over it, she was hobbling away, casting menacing glances over her shoulder. "This isn't over, Lucas. The HOA will be issuing you a formal notice. Your secretive ways are worrying the community," she called. I observed her retreat, likely concocting a version of events that painted her as the injured party. Back inside, I sat at my desk, accessing our neighborhood's security camera network. Unbeknownst to many in Willow Creek, I had designed the entire system. It's my profession, crafting smart home and community technologies. I prefer to keep out of HOA affairs, valuing my privacy both at work and at home. I reviewed the footage, vividly capturing Deborah deliberately placing a ladder against my fence and peering into my garden. Her motives were crystal clear. I saved the video, suspecting it might prove useful. With some investigative keystrokes, I uncovered a pattern. She had been snooping into other gardens, clipboard in hand, noting supposed violations. Later, as I prepared dinner, a soft knock at my door revealed Evelyn Harper, my neighbor from across the way, carrying a plate of biscuits. "I witnessed Deborah's antics today," she said, her eyes sparkling with humor as I invited her in. "She's been a nightmare since taking over the HOA 3 years ago. Rumor has it, her husband left her due to her controlling nature. Her upbringing was equally overbearing." Evelyn settled at my kitchen island, helping herself to some iced tea I offered. "Between us, Lucas," she continued, "someone needs to stand up to her. She's becoming intolerable. Just last week, Claire and Wynne received a penalty from Deborah, the local enforcer of rules, for having hedges that exceeded the regulation height by a mere 2 inches. Claire, a single mother juggling 2 jobs, hardly has the time to meticulously measure her greenery. I was taken aback, having only known Clara as a private person living a few houses down and unaware of Deborah's relentless pursuit of others. "I've attempted to steer clear of any confrontations," I confessed, leaning against the counter, "yet she seems intent on making me her next target." Evelyn regarded me shrewdly. "Lucas, sometimes dodging confrontations only empowers bullies. Deborah thrives on intimidating those who don't defend themselves. It's her insecurity, shaped by her constant need for her mother's approval, that drives her." Her comment lingered in my thoughts as she continued, "Just so you know, you're not alone. Many of us are exhausted by her antics." As Evelyn departed, I noticed a peculiar gadget mounted on the lamppost directly facing my house, conspicuously absent the previous day. It provided a clear view of my front entrance, likely a faux sensor placed by Deborah to unsettle me. That evening, I found myself at my desk, typing furiously while analyzing the neighborhood's security network. The device outside my home was an empty threat, disconnected and merely symbolic. It was a bold move from Deborah, declaring her own brand of war. I leaned back with a slow smile. "If it's a game you want, Deborah," I whispered, "I'm well versed in this system." I sipped my coffee, already concocting a strategy, oblivious to the fact that Deborah was plotting something even more insidious than anticipated. The next morning, an official HOA violation notice arrived in the post, printed on glaringly bright yellow paper as if the hue alone imparted gravity to my alleged offenses. I skimmed through accusations of excessive privacy measures supposedly masking unauthorized alterations, with an inspection of my backyard demanded within 48 hours. Deborah's bold, looping signature was scrawled at the bottom. I carefully tucked the notice into my desk drawer, resisting the urge to crumple it, knowing its preservation could prove crucial should matters escalate, as they inevitably would with Deborah. Later that afternoon, my security system detected activity near my back fence. Switching to the camera, I observed a man in a cheap suit and hard hat. Jerry Miller, a friend of Deborah's and owner of a struggling landscaping business, surveying my fence and scribbling on a clipboard. This was no official inspection. It was Deborah's personal investigator seeking dirt on me. As he attempted to open my gate, I remotely activated the sprinkler system, watching as a sudden torrent of water sent him fleeing, clipboard held aloft, his pricey shoes sinking into the mud. From the kitchen window I saw him retreat, soaked and cursing. That evening, seized by a desire for reconnaissance, I employed my expertise in IoT systems to infiltrate the bogus sensor Deborah had placed across from my house. As suspected, it housed a recording device capturing audio from surprising distances. Deborah was unlawfully eavesdropping on conversations on my doorstep. More disturbingly, a network of similar devices was recording neighborhood residents, gathering snippets of private dialogues to bolster her enforcement tactics in Willow Creek. The following morning, as I headed for a coffee, I spotted Deborah in her car, surveilling my house ineffectively camouflaged behind a newspaper. Disinclined to confront her, I composed an anonymous email: "Cease recording your neighbors without permission. Your actions are illegal and someone is aware." With that, I sent it and awaited the fallout. 20 minutes later, my doorbell camera recorded Deborah rushing to inspect the sham sensor, her agitation palpable as she frantically scanned the area for her observer. Later, I encountered Tyler Reed, the neighborhood's maintenance worker, as he tended to a faulty sprinkler in the community park. "Hey Lucas," he called out, "I heard Deborah's giving you trouble now. Welcome to the club. She's had me working double shifts for the same pay, threatening to report me if I don't oblige. Last week, she insisted I repaint her porch for free, claiming it was community property because it faced the street. On my way home, I saw Clara Wynn in her front garden meticulously measuring her hedges, a look of anxiety etched across her face. She glanced up as I walked past. "Lucas, isn't it? I'm Clara. Deborah gave me a notice yesterday. Apparently my hedges are 2 inches too tall. I have 72 hours to trim them or face a $100 fine," she explained, frustration evident. "As a single mom juggling 2 jobs, I don't have time for this nonsense." That evening, I spotted Deborah through her home office window, sitting stiffly at her desk, staring intently at a framed photograph. Even though the resolution was poor, I zoomed in and discerned that the photo depicted an older woman with features strikingly similar to Deborah's, likely her mother. Deborah seemed to be speaking to the photograph, clenching her fist as she did. This was more than just HOA regulations for her. It was deeply personal, rooted in her past. The next morning, my security system alerted me to activity at my front door. It was a stack of flyers warning residents about supposed suspicious activity at my address, urging neighbors to report anything unusual. No specific allegations were mentioned, just vague hints designed to turn my neighbors against me. In frustration, I crumpled the paper, unleashing a shout of anger in the privacy of my home. But after a few calming breaths, I felt clarity return. Deborah was escalating because she felt threatened. Resolute, I squared my shoulders and resumed work. "You want a war, Deborah? I'm just getting started." What I didn't foresee was receiving a letter that would upheave the entire neighborhood. After finding Deborah's flyers, my phone buzzed incessantly with messages and missed calls. Neighbors I barely knew were reaching out, some concerned, others suspicious. Overnight, Deborah circulated a fresh set of flyers throughout Willow Creek, with accusations branded specifically to me. They described a supposed animal breeding operation happening at 42 Maple Drive, my home. The flyer claimed strange noises and unusual scents had been noted, insinuating I was running an illegal pet enterprise. Such absurd claims would be laughable if they weren't so damaging. I didn't own a pet, let alone conduct a breeding operation. As I stepped outside, several neighbors watched, their expressions shifting from curious to wary. When I waved, they quickly looked away, creating an isolating atmosphere. Only Evelyn Harper gave a sympathetic smile from her porch, showing she wasn't swayed by Deborah's propaganda. Inside I paced, doubt coursing through me. I had come to Willow Creek in search of peace and privacy, not to engage in neighborhood feuds. Briefly, I contemplated selling my home and starting anew, but running would only enable Deborah to target someone else, Clara or another neighbor unable to defend themselves effectively. With renewed resolve, I began compiling evidence. The flyers, the fabricated sensor alerts, the falsified audio recordings, violation notices based on made-up concerns. Reviewing my security footage, I discovered Deborah recording conversations throughout the neighborhood for months. In one disturbing clip, she threatened an elderly resident with daily fines unless they removed a small American flag, as it wasn't the regulation size per HOA guidelines. This became part of my expanding dossier against Deborah, yet it still seemed insufficient for a decisive strike. That afternoon, a gentle knock at my door revealed Clara Wynne, a hint of discomfort but determination evident in her posture. Deborah fined me $300 for my hedges, triple the original amount, accusing defiance because I trimmed them myself instead of using her recommended landscaper. When I protested, she threatened to place a lien on my house. Clara's hands trembled as she displayed the notice, concern mingling with desperation. Her son's tuition was due soon, and she was working double shifts to make ends meet. I examined the notice, noting it lacked the required signatures from other HOA board members. "This isn't even legally enforceable," I assured her. "She's counting on you not knowing the bylaws well enough to challenge her." Clara's shoulders relaxed slightly, but worry still clouded her face. "Evelyn mentioned you might be gathering evidence about Deborah's activities." I studied her before making a decision. "Would you like to see what she's really been up to?" Over the next hour, I shared select evidence with Clara. The illegal recording devices, footage of Deborah intimidating an elderly resident, the falsified violation notices. With each revelation, Clara's disbelief transformed into determination. Transitioning from skepticism to shock and ultimately anger, I was stunned when I realized the extent of the situation. "I had no clue it was this severe," she confessed. "She told everyone you were operating an illegal business, possibly something dangerous, and I was worried about my son being anywhere near your property. I apologize for believing any of it." That evening, I discovered a formal notice among my mail indicating that a special HOA meeting had been convened to address my supposed violations and perceived threats to community safety. The meeting was set for just 2 days later, affording me scant time to organize a defense. The document identified Deborah as the primary complainant, alongside signatures from 3 other board members, close allies who frequently gained from her selective enforcement of the HOA rules. Back home, my security system alerted me to movement beside my house. The camera feed revealed Tyler Reed moving discreetly along the fence line. I was poised to trigger the alarm when Tyler looked directly into the camera, waving a USB drive with urgency. I deactivated the alarm and met him at the side gate. "Apologies for the secrecy," Tyler whispered. "Deborah is monitoring your house and I can't risk being seen assisting you." He pressed the small drive into my hand. "It's security footage from the community center. Deborah is unaware I have access to the backup server. There's vital information here, especially what she's been saying about you to other board members." Once Tyler departed, I watched the footage with mounting disbelief. Deborah had meticulously fabricated stories about me to the HOA board, false claims of residents complaining about strange noises and smells, fictitious visits from local animal control, and entirely baseless accusations that I had threatened her. The footage also captured Deborah accessing the HOA's financial records late at night, though the angle failed to reveal her exact actions. As night fell, I looked out onto the quiet street. The neighborhood I had chosen for its tranquility had transformed into a battlefield, and I was thrust into a conflict I had never sought. "I need something stronger," I murmured, unaware that Deborah was about to provide exactly what I needed and that her desperation would compel her to make a critical error in her campaign against me. The morning of the HOA meeting arrived with an unusual calmness, as if the entire community was collectively holding its breath. I had spent most of the night meticulously preparing my defense, organizing my evidence into a coherent presentation. As I rehearsed one final time, my security system drew my attention again. The backyard sensors had detected movement along the fence. Switching to the camera, I watched in disbelief as Deborah positioned a ladder against my fence, brandishing tools, garden shears, and a small camera. The audacity was shocking. Hours before she intended to publicly accuse me, she was trespassing, either planting evidence or gathering it unlawfully. Recording the sequence, I observed Deborah climb with surprising nimbleness, aiming the camera at my vegetable garden. Suddenly the ladder wobbled, it had been placed on unstable ground, and began to tilt. Deborah emitted a piercing scream as the ladder and she toppled backwards. Unlike previous incidents, this fall appeared genuinely painful. She landed awkwardly, the ladder clattering on top of her, and I could see her face twisted in agony as she clutched her leg. For a moment I felt concerned despite everything. I didn't wish harm upon anyone on my property. Before I could assist, Deborah managed to pull herself up, limping away with a mask of pain and fury. 3 hours later, while preparing to leave for the HOA meeting, a police cruiser pulled into my driveway. 2 officers approached my door. "Mr. Bennett, we're investigating an assault claim filed by Deborah Walsh. She alleges you booby-trapped your property, causing her to fall and break her leg. She's currently at Willow Creek Memorial Hospital." I experienced a surge of disbelief, swiftly followed by anger. Deborah would stoop to such lengths? "Officers, I have video evidence of what truly transpired," I responded calmly. "Ms. Walsh trespassed and fell due to her own negligence." The officers watched in silence as the footage revealed Deborah positioning the ladder, climbing with her camera, and falling when it slipped. "She was attempting to record my garden without permission," I explained, highlighting it as the latest incident in a pattern of harassment. I shared select pieces of evidence: the fake sensors, defamatory flyers, and falsified violation notices. By the time I concluded, the officer's demeanor had noticeably shifted. "We'll need a copy of," the senior officer advised. "We need this footage for our report, and I recommend you file a complaint about the harassment and trespassing." Once the police departed, I sank into my chair, overpowered by the unfolding drama. Deborah had attempted to accuse me of assault within my own home, a notion that shattered my composure. What on earth is wrong with her? I hollered at the vacant room, striking the desk. After pacing my office to vent frustration, a clearer understanding emerged. Deborah had blundered significantly by lodging a false police report, transitioning this affair from trivial neighborhood spats to a legal matter where evidence favored me. I contacted the hospital to inquire after Deborah, partly out of genuine concern but mainly to demonstrate my responsible actions. The nurse informed me that Miss Walsh was receiving treatment for a fractured fibula. A text from Tyler lit up my phone. "Meeting postponed due to Deborah's accident. She's spreading rumors of sabotage, cautioning about potential retaliations." The next day, a certified letter arrived from Deborah's solicitor, stating she was pursuing a lawsuit for personal injury, emotional distress, and property damage, demanding $50,000 in damages alongside medical expenses. I scanned and emailed the letter along with a summary to my own solicitor, whose prompt reply assured me not to worry. This was clear trespassing with supporting video evidence, and he would handle it. Later that evening, reviewing neighborhood security footage, I noticed several crucial clips from Deborah's fall had been seemingly erased from the system, suggesting tampering by someone with administrative access. Fortunately, having built the system, I knew of the backups. Accessing the secondary server, I discovered the missing footage, revealing Deborah conversing with someone in a car before proceeding to my house with the ladder. Zooming into the vehicle, a black sedan with tinted windows, I couldn't identify the driver. However, it was evident Deborah's actions were deliberate and possibly orchestrated. The following morning, my front yard was occupied by a hush-talking ensemble of neighbors, their eyes frequently veering towards my home. At the core sat Deborah in a wheelchair, her leg encased in plaster, presiding like royalty over a public display of her injury, a campaign to draw support. Observing through the window, I saw her gesticulating with fervor, occasionally dabbing her eyes theatrically with a tissue to enhance her facade of victimization. Only Evelyn and Clara seemed unswayed, their expressions skeptical. Taking a breath, I opened the door to confront the inquisitive murmurs, unaware of Deborah's already laid plans for an impending legal battle that could alter Willow Creek permanently. 2 weeks after the latter incident, I found myself in the county courthouse, anticipating the preliminary hearing of Walsh versus Bennett. My solicitor, Martina Rodriguez, sat beside me, meticulously reviewing our evidence. Opposite us, Deborah sat with her legs still in a cast, now embellished with sympathetic neighbors' signatures. She added a neck brace absent during her front yard theatrics, wincing dramatically when attention drifted her way. Her solicitor, a slick character donning an expensive yet poorly fitted suit, leaned in to whisper to her. Deborah had furthered her legal claim and launched a social media crusade against me, creating a neighborhood watch page broadcasting tales about the dangerous resident of 42 Maple Drive. Although she avoided directly naming me, her hints left no doubt among Willow Creek's residents about her target. While some neighbors heeded Deborah's warnings, even avoiding my home, others began scrutinizing her narrative. As the hearing commenced, Deborah's solicitor outlined their story with flair, portraying me as a hostile recluse who engineered hazardous conditions to obstruct the HOA president from her official responsibilities. He argued Deborah had been executing a routine exterior inspection from public property when a destabilized ground section caused her fall. Finishing, Deborah dabbed her eyes with a tissue, shoulders shaking, a performance seeming rehearsed rather than authentic. In response, Martina calmly presented the judge with the harassment timeline, showcasing security footage of both latter incidents. Silence enveloped the courtroom as the video starkly exhibited Deborah's trespassing and her fall, prompted by a poorly placed ladder. "Your Honor," Martina concluded, "this case illustrates an attempt to exploit the legal system as part of a persistent harassment campaign. Ms. Walsh was trespassing, and Mr. Bennett has video proof that contradicts each claim in her lawsuit." Before Deborah could address the judge's inquiries, her solicitor interjected, "Your Honor, we suspect the video has been altered. Mr. Bennett, being an IT expert, possesses the skills to manipulate digital evidence." He then presented a flash drive. "We have our own footage from a witness showing Ms. Walsh was on the public footpath when the incident took place." My heart raced as the judge directed the bailiff to display this new video evidence. The screen showed Deborah on the pavement before she suddenly collapsed. While the timestamp matched the date of the incident, the rest was clearly fabricated. Martina called for a forensic inspection of the footage, noting several discrepancies on even a preliminary viewing, such as shadow angles that did not align with the timestamp and visible edits in the metadata. The judge ordered a forensic analysis of all video evidence and fixed Deborah with a stern look. "Mrs. Walsh, I suggest you ensure your testimony accurately represents events as they happened. Presenting falsified evidence will have severe repercussions." As we exited the courthouse, Deborah limped past on her crutches, giving me a venomous glare. "This isn't over, Lucas," she hissed. "You think you're so clever with your cameras and your fancy lawyer, but I've lived in Willow Creek for 15 years. These people trust me, not some antisocial tech geek who hides behind his fence." Maintaining my composure, I simply raised an eyebrow and replied, "You're right about one thing, Deborah. This isn't over, not by a long shot." That evening, Tyler, Evelyn, and Clara gathered in my living room for an informal strategy meeting. "Deborah's getting desperate," Tyler said. "She cornered me at work, offering to waive all my penalty fines if I testify that I saw you tampering with the ground near your fence." Clara produced a folder from her bag. "I work at First National Bank where Deborah holds the HOA accounts. She came in yesterday to withdraw a substantial sum from the community fund, £5,000 in cash. When I asked about the required second signature, she claimed it was an emergency legal expense approved by the board." This new revelation sent my mind racing. Why did Deborah need £5,000 in cash right after the judge ordered a forensic analysis of her doctored video? The timing seemed highly suspicious. She might be attempting to bribe someone, I speculated, possibly the tech expert who created that fake video. Later that night, I noticed Deborah meeting with her solicitor in the community park, far from any houses. I couldn't hear their conversation, but their body language was telling. Deborah was gesticulating wildly, while the solicitor shook his head repeatedly. At one point, Deborah thrust what appeared to be an envelope into the solicitor's hands, which he reluctantly accepted after glancing around uneasily. The next morning, a certified letter arrived from the court. The forensic analysis had been expedited, and the findings were conclusive. Deborah's video had been digitally manipulated. The judge dismissed her lawsuit with prejudice and referred the matter to the district attorney's office for potential charges. I read the letter twice, relief washing over me. As I looked up, my security dashboard revealed Deborah's car rapidly reversing out of her driveway, a suitcase visible in the back seat. "Running away, Deborah?" I murmured. I reached for my mobile but hesitated as a notification popped up on the screen. Another large withdrawal had just been processed from the HOA accounts, totaling £20,000. My fingers hovered over the phone as I realized we had unearthed Deborah's most significant secret yet. The bank alert had arrived at a critical moment. £20,000 had been withdrawn from the HOA reserve fund, merely hours after Deborah's lawsuit was dismissed and mere minutes before she was seen. FLEI immediately phoned Clara, who confirmed the transaction had indeed gone through without the required dual signatures. "I wasn't at the counter when it happened," she explained. Deborah must have anticipated I would scrutinize the withdrawal. I swiftly contacted Martina, who instructed me to notify the police at once. This goes beyond HOA drama now, Lucas. This is embezzlement, and her attempt to escape indicates consciousness of guilt. Within half an hour, Detective Rivera had issued a bolo for Deborah's vehicle. I accessed traffic cameras near the motorway entrances in search of her blue saloon. After nearly an hour, I spotted her car at a petrol station just off the interstate, roughly 20 miles out. I promptly sent the location of Willow Creek to Detective Rivera, who assured me that officers were on their way. As I awaited updates, I couldn't fathom how a mere disagreement over a fence had spiraled into unearthing financial crimes that could see Deborah imprisoned. Later that evening, Detective Rivera was at my doorstep. "We've apprehended her," he stated flatly, explaining she was found checking into a motel near the state line under a false name, with money, a new phone, and documents for a counterfeit identity in her suitcase. Over the next hour, I detailed the saga from Deborah's initial ladder incident to the falsified court evidence. By the end, Detective Rivera was shaking his head, admitting that in 2 decades he'd seen neighborhood disputes turn ugly, but nothing quite like this. Before departing, he requested copies of all my evidence, noting that the district attorney was considering several charges: criminal trespass, filing a false police report, perjury, presenting falsified evidence, and now embezzlement. Serious prison time was on the horizon. As he paused at the door, he queried why Deborah targeted me specifically. I'd pondered the same, perhaps because I symbolized something beyond her control. I prized my privacy, stayed clear of her meetings, and built a fence, all perfectly within the homeowners association rules, a representation of independence she found unbearable. The clatter of car doors slamming woke me the following morning. Glancing through the blinds, I saw 3 police cruisers and an unmarked car lined along the street, officers marching towards Deborah's house with a search warrant. Curious neighbors gathered on their lawns, watching as boxes of documents and electronic devices were hauled from the house. Spotting Evelyn among the spectators, I joined her. "They've been at it for an hour," she informed me, adding that Clara had texted about more evidence of Deborah's financial wrongdoing. As Tyler arrived with cups of coffee, he shared in a hushed tone that investigators found a filing cabinet in the community center office packed with residents' personal information: bank statements, credit reports, even medical records. Deborah had exploited her position within the HOA to gather sensitive data, creating a repository she could use for blackmail or manipulation. A chill swept over me. Her invasion of privacy far surpassed simple fence spying. By early afternoon, news vans clustered, drawn by the story of the HOA president's dramatic downfall. I respectfully declined to comment when approached by reporters, observing Deborah's attorney rushing towards his car, pursued by yet another reporter. His face pale, the trademark confidence vanished. Later, I learned investigators had discovered text messages hinting he might have known about Deborah's evidence tampering in our lawsuit. As twilight descended upon Willow Creek, I sat on my porch, reveling in the serenity of my garden for the first time in weeks. A message from Clara broke the stillness. An emergency HOA meeting had been called for the next day, with interim leadership appointments. Several members had recommended I join the board, a curious twist for a neighborhood recluse like me. Another text followed from Detective Rivera. While in custody, Deborah had requested paper and pen, supposedly to write apology letters, but officers found her penning threatening notes to me and several others. She'd been placed under suicide watch and psychiatric hold. This news unsettled me more than expected. Despite everything Deborah had done, I felt no satisfaction in her mental health unraveling. Memories of her speaking to her mother's photograph, the desperation in her posture, and the relentless pursuit of control that had ultimately led to her downfall crossed my mind. There was a profound tragedy in someone so gripped by the fear of losing power that they would sacrifice all rather than relinquish their fragile grip on authority. My reflection was interrupted by a notification from my security camera. A vehicle approached my drive. The footage showed an official county car parking outside, from which a woman in a suit emerged, carrying a substantial envelope. She introduced herself as a representative from the district attorney's office, regarding the case against Deborah Walsh. "If you have further queries, would you be able to come in tomorrow morning to provide a formal statement?" Just as she was about to leave, she paused and mentioned the district attorney wished to extend personal thanks to you. Your scrupulous record-keeping greatly strengthened this case. Back inside, I examined the DA's documents spread out on my kitchen table. One particular question aroused my curiosity. Did Deborah Walsh's conduct suggest premeditation and an awareness of wrongdoing, Or was she possibly deluded about her own authority? This complex question compelled me to view Deborah as more than just an adversary. My computer alerted me to an incoming email from Martina with a subject line that made my heart race. Urgency, new evidence found. I opened it immediately, my eyes widening as I absorbed the contents. Even after everything that had transpired, Deborah had one final surprise in store. Martina's email included shocking details that even I hadn't uncovered. A police search of Deborah's home had unearthed a concealed safe containing 15 years of meticulously annotated HOA financial records in her handwriting. These documents revealed her embezzlement was not a recent act of desperation but a systematic scheme initiated almost as soon as she became HOA president. Over the years, she had siphoned nearly $150,000 from community funds through fictitious maintenance projects, inflated contractor invoices, and administrative fees that ended up in her personal accounts. The records also documented a list of residents who had paid her fees for expedited approvals, essentially bribes to overlook HOA violations. Most alarmingly, Deborah had kept detailed dossiers on every homeowner in Willow Creek, noting potential leverage points from financial troubles to marital issues. My name appeared on a separate list marked Threats to Authority, alongside Clara and other residents who had contested her decisions. Next to my name was a series of unsuccessful intervention strategies, culminating in the note, Legal action unsuccessful, proceed to blackmail using bank records. This cold, calculating nature of the documents portrayed her as far more methodical in her manipulation than I had initially realized. The following morning, I gave my statement to the district attorney's office. Upon completion, the assistant DA shook my hand with genuine appreciation. Thanks to your evidence and these financial records, Ms. Walsh will be facing several felony charges and a significant prison sentence. As I departed the office, I felt a complex mixture of emotions: relief that justice was being served, vindication for standing against Deborah, yet also a lingering sadness for a woman whose life had been contorted by her need for control. 2 days later, an emergency community meeting convened at the Willow Creek Community Center, with nearly every resident in attendance. The room buzzed with shock and confusion as the full extent of Deborah's crimes was laid bare. The interim HOA board presented a preliminary assessment of the financial damage and outlined steps to recover the stolen funds. Upon entering, conversations halted momentarily as neighbors turned to look at me, not with distrust but with newfound respect. Several approached, apologizing for having believed Deborah's lies, while others expressed gratitude for my perseverance. "The board has a proposition for you," Clara whispered as I took a seat beside her. "We need someone with technological expertise to help secure the HOA's digital systems. Would you consider an advisory role?" I chuckled softly at the irony of being asked to participate officially in the very organization I had previously avoided. Despite my inclination for privacy, I realized my neighbors needed assistance to rebuild what Deborah had damaged. The meeting continued with discussions on immediate actions: conducting an independent audit of HOA finances, implementing new checks and balances for financial transactions, and ensuring more transparent processes for addressing violations. During the question session, an elderly resident admitted to paying Deborah $800 to expedite the approval for his gazebo. The interim president, a retired judge named Howard Simmons, assured him and others in similar positions that they were considered victims, not accomplices. As the meeting drew to a close, Howard announced that Deborah had agreed to a plea deal. Part of the agreement required her to publicly apologize to the community, specifically to those she most aggressively targeted, including Lucas Bennett, Clara, and Tyler Reed. A murmur of satisfaction spread through the crowd. The apology is scheduled for the community green next Saturday before she begins her 8 to 12-year sentence. The day of Deborah's public apology dawned bright and clear. By 9:30, nearly every resident of Willow Creek had gathered on the community green. At precisely 10 o'clock, a police car arrived and Deborah emerged, flanked by officers. The change was startling. The once imperious HOA queen was dressed in a rumpled floral gown. Deborah presented a diminished figure. Her unkempt hair and smudged makeup suggested recent tears. Despite her legs still being encased in a plaster cast, she vehemently declined assistance, choosing to hobble alone to the podium. For several poignant moments, she surveyed the crowd with an expression that blended anger, shame, and defeat. When she eventually spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "As part of my plea agreement, I must apologize to the Willow Creek community for my actions during my tenure as HOA president." Her delivery was mechanical, more an obligatory recital than genuine contrition. Her voice steeled as she reached the segment addressing Lucas Bennett. I apologized to Lucas Bennett for my attempts to tarnish his reputation. The pause and her guarded choice of words underscored her continuing reluctance to fully acknowledge her misconduct. As Deborah concluded and was escorted back to the police car, Clara stepped forward, representing the new HOA board. I want to assure everyone that Willow Creek is embarking on a new chapter, she declared. We will prioritize transparency, fairness, and respect for the rights and privacy of every resident. Her speech drew enthusiastic applause, and as the police vehicle departed, neighbors turned to each other, sparking conversations that began knitting the isolated households into a vibrant community. In the weeks that followed, Willow Creek transformed remarkably. My first act as technology advisor was whimsically renaming the neighborhood Wi-Fi network to HOA Free Zone, which quickly evolved into a symbol of our fresh governance approach. I placed a playful sign at my yard's boundary stating, "Private area, no ladders allowed," becoming a cherished local icon with neighbors often stopping to take photos and share them online. 6 months later, one Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. Evelyn stood there, reminding me that the neighborhood barbecue would commence in an hour and that I couldn't evade participation this time. The residents anticipated the presence of Willow Creek's hero. Before departing, she handed me an envelope stamped with an unfamiliar emblem. Inside was a letter from a neighboring development, requesting my expertise for designing a community security system. As I strolled to the barbecue later, I ruminated on life's unexpected detours. I had moved to Willow Creek craving solitude, yet here I was, more entwined with my neighbors than ever planned. Upon arriving at the green, I was greeted with scenes of neighbors grilling, children playing, and an authentic sense of community permeating the air. Clara beckoned me over to join her, Tyler, and Evelyn. Raising her glass in a toast, she declared, "To Willow Creek," adding with a smile, "and to ladders in all the wrong places." Where do you find yourself amidst this neighborhood drama? Feel free to share in the comments below, and if you've ever faced an HOA nightmare, I'm keen to hear your story. Often, the most effective revenge against petty tyrants isn't intricate schemes. It's simply standing firm and allowing them to ruin themselves. After all, as Deborah learned the hard way, when you spy on your neighbors from a ladder, make sure it stands on firm ground. Whether from whispers to chaos or beyond, click the next video if you're ready to explore more. With a suitcase.